Hello, I'm Sally Wiener-Grotta, and this is What If, Why Not, How? Where I ask people who have interesting stories and ideas questions that are on my mind. My guest today is Miriam Seidel. I know Miriam as a member of the rather vibrant Philadelphia science fiction community. And of course, I've known about her first novel, The Speed of Clouds, which is a fantasy about science fiction fandom. I've known about that for a while. I've also known about her stories and essays that she's published as Mir Seidel in things like Bourbon Pen or Into the Ruins or Calyx and elsewhere. But what I didn't know about Miriam, whom I consider a friend, but you don't always talk about everything, I didn't know she was a librettist. And she has written librettos for 2 operas. The first one was Judgment of Midas with a score by Cameron Ince. Do I pronounce his name correctly? Cameron.
Yes, Cameron Ince.
Judgment of Midas with a score by Cameron Ince, which was performed in Milwaukee. But the reason we're here today is that she also wrote the libretto for Violet Fire, which is an opera about Nikola Tesla, with a score by minimalist composer John Gibson. Violet Fire had its world premiere in Serbia. That must have been fascinating. Tesla's homeland on the 150th anniversary of his birth. It's also been performed in Philadelphia and at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And it's the subject of Miriam's newest book, Tesla's opera, The Real Stranger-Than-Fiction Nikola Tesla. Yeah, he was a strange one. The book includes Miriam's full libretto and comments, plus commentary by the opera's director and conductor, critic Merlin Jackson, and author-poet Andre Kondrusko, as well as photos from the performance and images from the continuous video projections in the opera. It's a beautiful book. In previous lives, Miriam has written about the arts for Art in America, Philadelphia Inquirer, Dance Magazine, and elsewhere, and has worked as a curator. Miriam, welcome. I'm delighted you could join me today.
It's great to be here, Sally.
Let's start first by having you read a bit from Tesla's opera, if you would.
Sure. So this is from my sort of commentary piece, and basically it sets up why and how the book happened a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, all right. When I first heard about Nikola Tesla back in the 20th century, I was surprised. How was it that this man, whose stream of inventions and ideas laid the foundation for our electrified lives, wasn't universally known as Thomas Edison was? Mm-hmm. How could it be that the man who discovered the means for generating and transmitting alternating current, who held basic patents in other fields, including radio, robotics, and even computer circuitry, was not a household name? Not only that, but Tesla's outsized personality and life made him a tantalizing figure. Born into a modest Serbian family in Croatia, he wrote a series of groundbreaking scientific breakthroughs to become world famous around the turn of the last century. Featured in the scientific and popular press, he moved in the highest levels of New York society before his fortunes shrank away. Though he had friends, he never married or fell in love, except by his own account with a particular white pigeon. Only an opera, I thought, could capture the extremes and the surrealness of Tesla's life and imagination. Naively, I thought a project like this could help bring Tesla's story to a wider audience and restore his fame. I knew I couldn't write the music, so I started by writing a libretto. I discovered the work of the wonderful composer John Gibson, and I was thrilled when he agreed to work on the opera. We gradually added collaborators, including the director Terry O'Reilly, who helped put together the first performance in Philadelphia in 2004 at Temple University. Thanks to Terry's groundwork and vision, the opera Violet Fire moved forward to a premiere in Belgrade as part of the city's celebration of Tesla's 150th anniversary in 2006. There, I learned firsthand how Tesla is revered as a national hero in both Serbia and Croatia. A few months later, the opera returned for a full U.S. premiere featuring the Serbian singers, costumes, sets, and conductor. I'm not reading every single word, so skipping ahead a little. Now, nearly 20 years later, we find ourselves in a different world. Tesla has become a household word spoken around the world thanks to Tesla Motors, the electric vehicle company named after him. But the appropriation of his name, no doubt originally meant as an homage to a pioneer in electricity, has curdled thanks to the company's connection to its megalomaniacal owner. All this has put a stain on Tesla the man and obscured the compelling story we wanted to put together with the opera. Tesla's grand visions were matched by an equal generosity of spirit, not the greed and desire for power that drives the head of Tesla Motors. He aimed to improve people's lives in numerous ways, especially through his unrealized dream of providing free energy around the globe. Even his proposed machines of war were meant as a deterrent to promote peace. We need that Tesla. We hope that in revisiting Violet Fire, this book will inspire readers with a deeper view of Tesla, one that integrates his world-changing achievements with his mystical side, the man who saw visions of flames as a child, who worked out his inventions in his mind's eye, and who was hailed as a prince of the violet fire by the spiritualist author Margaret Storm. And I'll stop there.
Marvelous. Yes, thank you very much for reading that, Miriam. You answered a lot of questions I had about how the opera came about. It's Nikola Tesla, of course, fascinates all of us, but you made me think of something that I hadn't realized the correlation. When you talked about him working out his ideas in his mind's eye, I think of Einstein and his word pictures and his thought pictures that he worked on to come up with relativity and all the other issues. He would just sit there and picture it in his mind.
Yes, I think both of them had tremendous mental discipline.
Yes.
To be able to just stick with something and concentrate on it for a long period of time. True.
Yeah. And now you've written that Tesla was a visionary in more ways than one. Do you feel that his mysticism might have influenced his role and path as an inventor and a futurist?
I mean, I don't think that he saw himself that way. I think he absolutely saw himself as a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that he hid it. I think he accepted it, but I think that it was sort of in the background for him.
Mm-hmm.
Later in life, he did apparently study with an Indian yogi in New York. And I think he was sort of drawn to that. And what's interesting to me is that somehow he brings those two aspects together in a really unified way. So there was an example I had of how this comes together in a really striking way. Should I tell that story?
Yes, please do. Yes.
That was when he was really early. This was when he was in his 20s and he was still in Europe. He was kind of enthralled by the question of developing a frictionless motor. That at the time, motors were really like dangerous and sparky. And he actually got sick from thinking about it so hard. He had a kind of a nervous breakdown where he couldn't stand to hear any noises. And then as he was getting better, one day he was walking in the park. This was in Budapest with a friend, and he stopped transfixed as it came to him, and he saw the motor, the alternating current motor in all of its design glory against the sunset sky. So
wow.
Yeah. So that's the major Tesla, the visionary, which was absolutely, I think, both sides.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. One wonders about the Ezekiel wheel the concept.
Yeah. That's a wonderful. I mean, and actually, his father was a priest, so he was pretty conversant with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And his father wanted him to become a priest, but wanted to go to engineering school, and they had a kind of battle over that.
Right.
So yeah, that is kind of an undercurrent, of mystical things.
With your immersion into his life, what do you feel it was about him or about society or about his competitors that he disappeared from memory for most people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, it's a little bit of a mystery, because he really was world famous,
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that he was featured in fiction. There was kind of fan fiction about Tesla, in the pulp magazines, even before and I have another story to tell, but I want to try and stay with your point, which is that I feel like, even though Tesla had all these incredible world-changing inventions, he had a lot of other things that just never got made. He
Mm-hmm.
had this continuing stream of ideas, and I feel like he sort of came along right at the beginning of modern science fiction, and his work sort of went into that science fictional imaginal layer. So it was like they couldn't handle all of, we couldn't take in everything, but, so it sort of like stayed in that. And so the thing that I discovered, which is incredible, and I ended up putting it in the back of the book, is that Tesla was really the muse for Hugo Gernsback.
Whoa. Now explain who Hugo Gernsback is to
Okay.
who might not know it.
So people who you might have heard of the Hugos, which is the biggest, one of the biggest awards in science fiction, they are named after Hugo Gernsback, who was sort of the godfather of the early science fiction period. And his first magazine, Amazing Stories, is considered the first magazine of science fiction. Well, 20 years before that, he was a sort of a minor inventor himself who had an electronics magazine. And he basically introduced himself to Tesla and started inviting him to write articles for his magazines. And I think that, and then he also asked Tesla to write his autobiography. That would not exist if it was not for Gernsback, and he put it in as a serial in the magazine. And Gernsback even wrote this incredible short story where he sort of made himself a thinly disguised, talented young inventor, who's talking to Tesla about his invention, which is going to help stop World War I, because it was written in 1918. And I just feel like, 5 years later, he starts Amazing Stories. I think, the Tesla, with his world broadcasting system and his wireless, he had ideas for remote control weapons, and it was all very science fictional. And I think that's just an absolute organic connection. So I put that into the book as an appendix for people that are, want to go a little deeper into that dive.
What fun. That's a great little piece. Now, please tell us about the pigeon.
Oh, yeah.
Who I understand has a voice in your opera.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So to me, it was when I read this story about the pigeon, was when I thought, oh my God, this has to be an opera. That was, it's like, it's too strange. You couldn't do it in a movie, etc. So Tesla, in his later years, he hadn't sold any inventions in a while. He was in poverty, living by himself in a hotel room in Manhattan. And his one kind of hobby was feeding the pigeons. So he could always find the money for the pigeon feed. And there was one pigeon in particular, all white pigeon that would come to him wherever he was. She would find him in different parks, I guess. And then one day, or one night, I think, he was in his hotel room, and the pigeon came and landed on the windowsill of the hotel room. And he confided to a reporter this story, that he knew the pigeon was about to die. And then the whole room, he said, was filled with a light greater than any light he had ever seen in his laboratory. And he was experimenting with light. So this is another case of his mystical side coming to the fore. And I thought, oh my God, this guy who spent, his prime years studying the mysteries of light and electricity was able to have this experience that involved, a white pigeon, a white dove, as we know, is a symbol of peace. Mm-hmm. And the dove appears as a symbol of peace in the Bible. I kind of get verklempt when I'm talking about that story. So I knew that was needed to be dealt with, but in the first draft of the libretto, I didn't have the pigeon as a singing character. And it was when I realized, oh my God, it's a bird, it has to sing.
Yes.
That sort of unlocked the story for me. From then I knew how I needed to tell the story. And then Terry O'Reilly, the director, had this marvelous idea that we could have two characters on stage, both playing the dove. One was a dancer who did sort of pigeon. It was like what you would imagine a pigeon, like essence of pigeon on the ground. And then the other was the singing pigeon, and he staged it in such a beautiful way so that she was up high, but her dress looked like it was 20 feet long. So she was like floating above and singing as a soprano. And sometimes they were together, sometimes it was one or the other. But anyway, in his essay, Terry talks about how he had that idea and what it meant for him. So, because he was also, I didn't know this when I asked him, he was really into Tesla too.
Marvelous.
So that was, yeah.
You have in the past described Tesla's relationship with the pigeon as a love story.
Yes.
Did you mean that literally?
I mean, well, by his quote that he said to this young reporter who wrote the first biography of Tesla, I loved her as a man loved a woman. However, I think in an innocent way,
Yes. But I have the feeling he was entirely, I have the feeling he was entirely innocent in that aspect. He had no other relationships, right?
Not that we know of. There are some people who think, well, of course he was gay, and I don't have any problem with that. But then he fell in love with a female pigeon. So, that may or may not mean anything. For all practical purposes, he had no human partners, certainly.
Yeah. I think he would have been a hard man to live with. Whether it were a gay partner or a woman, it doesn't matter. I think he would have been difficult.
And with all the conversation around autism now, there are people that have said, well, of course he was autistic. All right, but how does that expand our understanding of him would be my next question.
Or maybe how does it expand our understanding of autism?
Yeah.
That would be interesting because I have known some autistic people. I'm thinking of one young man I knew who was quite brilliant.
Yes.
And if only people would have listened to him more, they would have learned a lot.
Yes. And it's autistic, some people on the spectrum can really concentrate. One thing and get sort of obsessed with it. And that was certainly an aspect of as well. So.
Yeah. Can you tell us a sense of what it's like to write a libretto versus a novel or a short story? It has to be a different process and a different mindset, but it also has to somehow be using some of the same parts of your brain.
Right. Well, they certainly are, they're different kinds of narrative, but they are both narrative.
Yes.
And I think as I was writing it, I was just thinking, to try to distill so that, almost like rock lyrics or something, so that sometimes it's just suggesting, but what it's suggesting has a lot of either metaphor or sensuous association, or something that really helps to push it along.
Right.
Yeah, I was honestly, it was just one of those things. I was younger and I was very confident that I could do this thing, because at the time, when this first came to me, I think I had hardly written anything else. I had graduated from art school and I was doing my art, and then I started writing some art criticism as well.
Right.
But yeah, and it was actually much later that I started working on the novel. So yeah. And also I think I do have a tendency to compress. Like when I write, like even a short story, my drafts always get longer, not shorter. And so I think that there was something where the compression of a libretto was sort of welcoming to me. Yeah.
Do you find that, well, it would be somewhat similar to a script for a stage play or for a movie, in the sense that you have to trust a lot in the staging, in the direction, and
Yes.
in the audience to understand what you're trying to say,
Right.
and as well as the singers or the actors.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad for the development where the super titles development in opera houses. They did have that at BAM. They did not have it in Belgrade, but we had a translation of the libretto that was in the program for people to follow along. So it's true that as things are sung, it sometimes gets a little harder to follow the lyrics, the words. And so so you want to do as much as you can. But again, with working with John Gibson was just wonderful. And his approach to music is kind of transparent and eloquent without being too much. It's hard to describe. So I felt like he was helping that process along for the words to still be part of people's experience of it. And I have to say, oh my God, actually hearing the music with my words sung to music was just an amazing experience. It's sort of like, when you feel your book in your hand, but it's also, I don't know, there's something that's just, it was amazing.
Oh, sure. It's much more than feeling your book in your hand, because it's the music is so much a part of the human psyche for emotions and for the life force. And suddenly your words are part of that life force.
Yeah. And I have to say that as I was working on the book, and I went back as I was, looking at the libretto and the pictures, I would, verses from the music would come to me and then I'd be singing them all day. It was like I had the whole thing memorized, although I probably couldn't sing it to you that way, but it was just, it had all imprinted on me. And it was just, that was also a great joy, was being able to revisit all this with the book.
I was curious about that, about the idea that you worked on this book that you have quite a distance of time and space from working on the opera.
Yes.
And as you read the commentaries you included and had to write your own, how was this different? Did you discover new aspects or layers of meaning you hadn't seen before? Because perhaps you were too close to it. You hadn't had the opportunity or the freedom to delve into it because you were compressing. It had to have been a unique experience to actually write this book after the fact. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. It was just, I mean, for me, honestly, it was a gift because it had been a long time ago. I had been, I kept up a website about it so people could see it, but, it isn't the kind of thing that you bring up in conversation. And, and so it was just great to go through all this stuff the pictures, I think, are just magnificent that they were taken by a Serbian guy, Srđan Mihić, who actually worked for the National Theater, and he just knew what he was doing. And to be able to share those, I did get in touch with him and got permission. And also the same, looking at the projections, I honestly, the projections, which were done by Sarah Drury and Jen Simmons, really fantastic. They actually had come on during the Temple production, and they kind of evolved, but were basically as they had done it. I had it all on an old hard drive, and I wasn't even sure if I knew where I had put it. That's how long it had been. And went through it. I was just, oh my God, this is amazing. I have to put this in. So it was kind of like realizing how it could be kind of brought to life on the page. And I don't really talk about this much, but I actually did the layout for the book too.
Oh my.
It was the publisher, Mark Estrin, a wonderful man who I had met years ago at Breadloaf, and a novelist in his own right, who knew about the opera. He was the one that had the idea for the book and came to me about it. And he said, well, can you just do it? Just can you, he just, he had the idea, but and then I was like, yeah, I think I could do this and this. Yeah. And that's something that I kind of enjoy with my art background. So
Sure. That was great. That's very now I have never seen the opera. I would love to have seen it. Is there any chance that there'll be another performance production, possibly near Philadelphia?
There's someone who would like to see that happen. That is not me. And that's all that I'll say about it, because it's an overwhelming thing to produce an opera. And I'm not a professional opera producer, but I do have the video, and I'm thinking about maybe doing a watch party. So if we do that, I'll let you know.
Please do. Maybe we can have a watch party at PhilCon.
And I believe I'm going to be giving a talk at PhilCon about why Nikola Tesla is a science fiction icon.
Fabulous. I should say PhilCon is the Philadelphia Science Fiction Community's conference, and it's the oldest science fiction and fantasy conference in the world. Philadelphians created the concept, and so that's where I first met Miriam, and we see each other there every year, if nowhere else. But we tend to run into each other.
Fans of each other's science fiction writing. So
yes, very much so. But I would love to see it. I would love to see it very much. And I highly recommend the book to anybody who's listening. It's well written, it's interesting, and it is physically beautiful. It would make a very nice Hanukkah or Christmas gift. To anybody who either loves Tesla or opera or science fiction or science. It would work. It's a great gift.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
My guest today was Miriam Seidel, the librettist of Violent Fire opera about Nikola Tesla, and the editor of Tesla's opera, The Real Stranger Than Fiction Nikola Tesla. She's also the author of Speed of Cloud, a fantasy novel about science fiction fandom. And you can connect with Miriam on her site at miriamseidel.com, and that's SEIDEL, and on Instagram and Blue Sky. As for me, my two newest books are Of Being Woman, a collection of feminist science fiction from Noble Fusion Press, and Daughters of Eve from Bite Publishing, which is an essay-based workbook and journaling guide for exploring the nature of our lives today through the lens of the stories of the women of the Hebrew Bible. My website is sallywienergrotta.com, where I'd love you to sign up for my very occasional newsletter. And you can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sometimes on Blue Sky. And now, finally, I've been saying any day soon. Finally, I'm on Substack. Actually, in 2 places on Substack. I'm on my own page, What If, Why Not, How? And also, I'm a contributor to Judith Magazine. So please join me there, and please join me here again for What If, Why Not, How? Another interview. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Miriam. It was
so much.
wonderful.